Welcome you all for the last general meeting, and I just reviewed the minutes of the last meeting. Changes in bylaws and membership due more than per month. GASA account changed from National Bank to Public Sector Bank, and that's it.
National Bank.
Yeah, resolution passed for that.
National Bank.
The previous minutes of the meeting held on so it was taken as read. We are meeting yes no we'll proceed with the next matter. I request Mr. So and so to speak on the topic of this.
I request Brinda to talk about that.
Good evening, sirs. Good evening, friends. First of all, I want to thank everyone for giving me this wonderful opportunity. That I have got an opportunity to speak on a very nice and a very interesting topic. It's valuation of inventories, International Accounting Standard 2. Before starting with that, I would like to give a brief introduction on IFRS. Starting my speech from the arise of need of IFRS, though there are hundreds of reasons for that, the main reason is, if a language spoken by one person is understood by the others who's interacting with them, then of course it facilitates the business and the transparency across the business increases. Putting off the same factor here. Every nation, they pursue their own generally accepted accounting principles, which they would have formed, keeping in mind their own local norms, their own regulatory norms, and their own constants in mind.
What is they?
Their nations.
So what is first IFRS? You have to give the briefing. What is IFRS? Then which are the countries that is following IFRS? Which are the countries not following it? How India is going to adopt this? Then only we can know. No, they are following. They are taking it. They will come to these fellows. These fellows will go to those fellows. Now, how will we? Just I am correcting you. I am not taking right on you.
Okay.
Just tell what is IFRS, how it is going to operate in India, and what date it is going to come, and things like that. Precisely, you come to the point.
Actually, my topic is about valuation of inventory, sir.
Okay.
I'm just giving a brief introduction on IFRS, not about specifically about India.
Okay, carry on.
So when they follow different generally accepted accounting principles, there arises a difficulty for conveying accounting financial statements and their results to the international investors when they play a role at the international forum. This was the main reason for the arise of need of IFRS, which is International Financial Reporting Standards. And now I'm going to explain the journey of IFRS. First, there was a body called International Financial Reporting Committee, which was looking after the international accounting standards. In April 2001, a body called IASB, International Accounting Standard Board, took over this IAS and it renamed it as IFRS, that is International Financial Reporting Standards, and it actively and promptly worked on it. As a result of which, for the past 10 to 12 years, is very much successful. Now, approximately more than 100 countries are pursuing this IFRS, more or less with the same format or with a big changes, keeping their requirements also in mind. And now this IFRS has assumed the status of globally accepted accounting standards. This IFRS not only contains of standards but also of interpretations. It comprises of 1 to 41 international accounting standards, out of which 12 has been omitted. So effectively there are 29 international accounting standards and 1 to 9 accounting standards has been already released, and it contains of interpretations. Now coming into my topic, valuation of inventories. It's a very well known topic, so rather than it being a speech, I want everyone to be interactive in this. Like I will say the definitions, and I expect you people to give me the formulas. Starting from the definition of inventories, inventory include assets which are held for sale during the course of ordinary business. That is finished goods, raw materials and work in progress, and it specifically excludes 3 items, that is work in progress arising during construction contracts, financial instruments, and biological assets relating to agriculture. Inventories. Starting from inventories, the key element in inventories is valuation. As a fundamental principle, we all know that we should evaluate net realizable value or cost whichever is less. It's whichever is less because of conservatism principle. And now, can anyone say the formula for NRV, net realizable value?
estimated selling price less cost incurred to make the sale.
Correct. Once again, I will say as per wordings in standard, it's selling price less cost to complete less selling cost. And then coming to cost, to say in short and simple is it's a cost incurred to bring the inventory to the present condition and present location. Since we have to value cost, also IAS 2 specifically includes some items and it excludes some items. I want 3 examples for inclusion and exclusions.
All administrative costs are excluded, selling costs are excluded.
Okay.
Only the costs that are incurred to bring the assets into necessary money or something, that will be added. Whatever be the carriage inward, whatever be the items, that will be come to the point of sale or included.
To say specifically, cost includes purchase cost less rebates or discount if any, then transportation cost, handling cost, then non-refundable duties and taxes, and specifically excludes abnormal waste, indirect administrative overheads, storage cost, then
Selling costs. All selling costs. Abhi solla, it will cover the entire gamut of costs.
Then this AS also speaks about the disclosure like any other AS. We should specifically disclose the cost of goods sold, the method followed to value this inventories, and if you have pledged any of your inventory as a liability, that should be specifically mentioned. And this inventory valuation affects P&L and balance sheet both combined, affects 3 places. I want you people to say those 3 places. Valuation of inventories affects, the method followed affects 3 places in both P&L and balance sheet combined.
Closing stock, current assets.
Yeah. It's correct. The value at which asset is shown in the balance sheet, then profit, then cost of goods sold.
Thank you.
Any questions, ma? Questions? Summa
English focus.
good speech, recently good speech. కొంచెం విడిగా
You elaborate, ma.
కొంచెం అర్థమైంది. For me it's good. It's a good step. కొంచెం elaborate చేస్తాం.
You have given examples.
కొంచెం elaborate பண்ணிக்கலாம். I'm not saying it's good, it's good actually. But as simple said, కొంచెం విడిగా చేస్తాం.
IFRS is nothing but it is a new concept to India. Previously it was done by countries like USA and other things. When countries like USA follow, the other nations are bound to follow. For us in India, we have got accounting standards. For the rest of the Europe and other things, Indian accounting standards are also, IAS is also there. Then in the meantime, the Middle East country and all, they are following IAS. Then USA came with the concept of IFRS, International Reporting Standard. It is nothing but a complement of accounting standard, internal accounting standards grouped together and put as so.
That was also one of the methods they would take to exercise control.
Because the number was given for each and everything.
Economic sovereignty.
The number for accounting standards from our side, IC Institute of Chartered Accountants India starts from 1, it ends with 32 or something as of date. And for in the international, in the AAS, it starts with 101 and series is there. Then IFRS came inside. They said we want these sort of numbers. Then they prescribed 41 IFRS standards. Out of that, 12 was considered to be old and not necessary. So they excluded those standards. Then what are the standards that have been covered by the other standards have been excluded from the purview of one standard. If one standard talks about that, that alone should be taken care and others should be included. So International Financial Standard, everyone was made to be a signatory to IFRS. So this came 4 to 5 years back, and our thing we are bound to follow it from this April 1, 2016. Whether we have to follow India AS or IFRS, it's going to be a compulsory for all those things. Now we have come with a new thing of what international financial control system or something is now going to be. Framework of networking is going to be there in March. After March, we are most of the MNCs and most of the fellows are now facing this sort of confusion, and now we are going to follow as auditor, we are going to do that. And it is only affecting for us those companies which have got a prescribed turnover, say 200 crores and above, have to necessarily follow this. Since our nature of client is lesser than that, we have not put ourselves into the situation and do that. So, wherever MNCs, wherever the companies operate with other, where the holding company is situated outside India or the subsidiary company situated elsewhere, they have necessarily follow, and this exercise has been taken recently. For IFRS, there were two schools of thoughts that it will never come to India. One thought was that being a signatory, Manmohan Singh government has signed this thing. We are bound to follow from so and so date they are given. Either we have to necessarily follow India IAS or IFRS only coming April 1, 2016 onwards. And our accounting standards are also going to have a task, because most of the ICAI accounting standards are based on the India IAS of the international accounting standard is India IAS. On that based on only we have formulated that. But we have taken our language, where the international language is slightly difficult words with jargons and other things, which is very difficult to catch those phrases and other things. And we are not a CPA oriented, or we are not focused on those sort of things. They have classified as investment standards and non-investment accounting standards. In our case, there is no question. They want to attack. Suppose if I make an investment in some other company, real estate, they have prescribed a standard. If it is other company, they have prescribed one standard. But it's not our case in our thing. Because in USA and other things, they have the concept of selling entire thing in a lot and doing that. Those standards are not applicable to us. So we are bound to follow this. One of the standards that is akin to our accounting standard 2 is this inventory, which our Brinda right now represented. In the international accounting standard, what we have to do, there are three pillars. That is, first we have to go by definition. Next comes the measurement. Measurement means whether it will be applicable. Measurement means accurate cost. Then the third pillar is disclosure standard. Some standards will give weightage to the definition and formula, whatever the concept is there. Some other accounting standards will give weightage to the measurement. Measurement means how I should ensure whether it will be affecting my thing. Measurement means not measurement like in tape or something. Measurement means whether what is the cost associated, how it is going to affect my profitability, how it is going to come into picture is the measurement. Then the next thing is disclosure standards. Some of the international accounting standards are India is a disclosure. So you have to, when you are going to study for final, you have to necessarily know which are all disclosure standards. That is, if you fail in disclosure, then what is the role of auditor? If disclosure is not there properly, or the disclosure standards are kept separately. For measurement, whether these standards have to be followed or not, that is also one of the important pillars. So you have to segregate between these. Out of these 29, you have to segregate what is the disclosure standard, what are the disclosure standards, what are the measurement standards, what are the standards that are applicable, what are general in nature. That's all. As an auditor, what you are bound to follow. If the company is not going to follow in disclosure, you have to qualify it accordingly. If measurement is wrong, you have to tell it accordingly. Is the general principle that is involved in this exercise. Since we are not a party to this, and India is slow in adapting to that, now we have come to a situation where a company will be forced either to follow India IAS or IFRS. It depends on the clientele nature and clientele. So we have to wait till 1/4/2016 where it is going to be a mandatory exercise from coming year. But generally our nature of companies are 5 lakhs or what all the turnover is not more than 2 crores or 3 crores. So we are all under the radar. So people are not giving much importance in India, and those clients like us are also very small in nature. So they are also not bothered. We are also not taking that into consideration, and we have not moved our foot forward to meet the contingency. Only 1 or 2 companies might come in this. Maybe India Siemens might come over with India or something. Then we have to increase our knowledge, our expertise, other things. You should start from our from partners level. Then you should calculate to people. Because only when the time comes, only we people have got a lack of feeding and other things. We don't foresee this, what will happen in October. Now I am not going ready for it. So we have to prepare ourselves for to meet the eventuality of anything. But we don't know which of the clients are going to follow it, which of the clients are going to follow IFRS. We don't know as of yet. So we are all kept in dark. So we have to naturally, even we don't have, even Prasanna was requesting me, sir, why don't you buy one India book, and so that we can also read together. I said, you go and buy and read for yourself and bring it to our office. Why do you expect me to do that? I was asking him in the morning. I said, sir, please kindly look into the India's angle and other things so that we can also do that. Previously for me, I passed this IFRS of institute from 5 years back. Now the IFRS has undergone a major change. What I read, what I wrote in the exam is slightly increased, and I don't know the present situation because I have not updated after my passing. I have not updated myself on this IFRS standard. So I have also lost touch with that AS and other things. Only when it is applicable I read that and I do that. That's why I could not support her because of my old memory and the IFRS I have read it 5 years back or 4 years back. That I am not used to that. Even though I am, why I passed that exam now, tomorrow if someone says it should be signed by certified IFRS, so for our firm to protect ourselves, I have made an attempt and I passed it. Because I am only certified IFRS, that is not recognized by the institute, they are given only a certificate. It cannot be equal to a degree or it cannot be equal to a third one. So in that area, whether I can certify for a company in Singapore, I don't know. Whether I can certify only company in India, I don't know. Whether I can go for Dubai and do that, I don't know. It is only a preliminary exam conducted by institute like our visa, which we also don't know. It is only one exam that is being conducted and given a certificate. That's all. That certificate, they have given us a training of 2 months previously. I have necessarily attend classes from Saturday, Sunday, every Saturday, Sunday, 8 weeks I have gone there. Right from morning 9 to 6 they will not leave you. Even for 2 minutes they will not, even for bathroom they will not allow you. You have to sit fully. Even if you miss out, then the institute will immediately conduct exam within a month's time, and the passing percentage is also 70%. So myself and some of my friends are there, but my friend R.T. Rajan is there. He is one of the faculty, but he has not appeared for the exam. But he is my friend and guru also. Suppose if a day arises what we want to have in IFRS like financial instruments or anything, I arrange to come here. He is one of the best speakers. And he is far ahead of all of us. We will hang our head in shame when he talks. Because he has specialized that area. Now he is also making money. Not only making money, he is taking to various forms of institute. He is trying and taking classes for so many, including our costing institute, CA institute, and other institutes. We don't know the background of other things. Please see. Okay, next speaker now.
Okay, now I request Gautam to give a speech on goods and services.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk about goods and services. Actually, the meaning of goods and services is a tax, indirect tax that brings together the most of the tax that are imposed on goods and services except a few under a single banner. This is in contrast to the current system where tax are levied separately on goods and services. Actually, a parliamentary motion, there is a parliamentary motion, a draft of constitutional amendment bill has been prepared and sent to the EC on obtaining views of state. The goods and service tax bill or GST bill, officially known as the Constitution 122nd Amendment Bill 2014, which should be value added tax, which may be implemented in India from April 2016. GST is a revolutionary tax changes in the Indian economy since independence. The intention and the entire indirect taxation ensures the uniform rate of tax for both goods and services. The end users get to pay uniform taxes, which thereby ensure reduction in burden in the indirect taxes. It also puts India on a par with many countries like Australia, Canada, Singapore, etc. There are some benefits in GST. At the simplest level, GST reduces the number of instances where tax needs to be paid, thus reducing the possibilities on the tax authorities, and hence it's assumed to be much transparent mode of administering taxes. It will lessen the burden of cascading taxes from individuals. It also expects to boost revenue collection in the certain states and to reduce the prices of the goods. There are some futures of GST. GST will have the following component comprising central GST levied and collected by the central government, and state GST levied and collected by the state government. The central would levy and collect integrated goods and service tax, that is IGST, on all interstate supply and imports of goods and services. There will be a flow of input tax credit from one state to another. Proceed to IGST will be appreciated among the states. GST will be applicable to every stage of value addition in chain, and an additional tax of 1% on interstate taxable supply of goods by state of origin, and it should be non-creditable. This additional tax on supply of goods shall be assigned to state from where such supplies originate. All the goods or services likely to be covered under GST except alcohol for human consumption, state excise plus VAT, electricity duty, real estate stamp duty plus property taxes. Petroleum products to be brought under GST from the date to be notified on recommendation of GST Council, and removes the cascading effect from the taxation. For an initial period of 2 years are further extended to the recommendation of GST Council. A non-VAT additional tax of not exceeding 1% on state tax supplies of goods would be levied and collected by the center and assigned to be originating the state. The Select Committee of Rajya Sabha has recommended that this tax should be levied only when the supply is made for consideration. Tobacco and tobacco products should be subject to GST. In addition, the center would continue to levy central excess duty tax. And there are also some difficulties involved in that GST. Fundamental problem involves is the decision of revenue neutral rate of GST that will be acceptable to all those involved, and also whether there is a single rate or two rates at the state and central level. The federation nature of the country also accounts for its own share of complication and delay. For the center to be able to impose tax at the retail level and for state to be able to tax services will require constitutional amendments, which will further need to be passed by the parliament and state governments. For example, a product whose base price is 100 after levying excise duty 12.5%, the value of product will be 1,125 on the sale of such goods. The VAT is also levied at 12.5%, then the value will be ultimate cost is 1,265%. In the proposed GST cost, both will charge at rate of 10%. Each on the base price of rupees 1,000. The value of the customers will be then 1,200. So in that case, the industry can better compete in global environment. The domain of the GST will be wide after a wide area with a single comprehensive tax levy on the goods and services.
What is GST is goods service tax, is the indirect tax now going to be levied by central government, and if GST is implemented, then most of the states which are levying VAT will lose this revenue, because every state budget is supported by levy of VAT. It depends on you would have seen in Tamil Nadu VAT or something, there will be schedules also there. In that the categories are there, molasses is rate, categorization is there. The highest rate is 12.5, and the lowest rate is 0, then 1%, 4%, whatever we think. That is the only earning revenue for state governments. If GST is going to be introduced by central government, the entire revenue will go to central government. From central government, they have to share with state governments. That's why state governments are opposing this tooth and nail. If this is the effect, if the effect is given for GST, the prices we are going to pay for this thing. This is if I levy 12.5% as sales tax or something. So for GST, I am going to pay 1% on this cost. So costs are bound to come down, and the rupee value is also devaluing day by day, and I don't have purchasing power. To overcome all these things, if GST is in the place, then the state government is bound to lose its revenue, and 1% alone is going to go to the coffers of central government. Then central government will share in some ratio. The states like Meghalaya or something, they will not get much because the origin of goods from the state is nil or negligible. States like Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, they are going to benefit because most of the products are there. And if I start from Maharashtra, if I have to reach Kerala or something, no. Most of the states following Andhra, Tamil Nadu border, and again going to Kerala, we don't know how they are going to share on what will be my revenue and where will the state governments go. If they are bound to follow this GST, two things will come into thing. The consumer will have better purchasing power. The cascading effect of tax on tax loading is also brought to some minimal level. Say 1%. If it is from 12.5 to 1%, it will be there. The next thing is the indirect taxes. It takes care both service tax as well as VAT. Service tax is a central government levy. The service tax, most of the people who are employed in organization for service tax, they will lose their jobs. If I am a service tax commissioner or I have 5,000 employees, those employees are also going to lose. And since centralization is there, they are bound to shift there. There also the problem is there. And similarly in state government, if you see most of the people in the government organization are all government employees comprising of department people of sales tax only. And their gaining capacity will also bound to reduce. That is why there is a stiff competition, stiff resistance to GST. When people like Korean people or Chinese or anything is there, they want concession for the technology to be placed here and to do their business. If you levy tax and other things, their taking capacity is because they operate in thin margin. They don't want to compromise on the margin. So they are giving pressure to central government that if we want to have that 5,000 crore industry or something, we want concession in the form of tax. But we don't have anything. They want concession in electricity, they want concession in water, they want concession in lease agreement or land purchase. So they are indirectly putting pressure that if you want foreign direct investments, they are one of the theme is that you should have a uniform that should be minimal 1%. I will pay 1% to single person instead of paying to Maharashtra government. Then the Andhra government will say something, the Uttar Pradesh government will say something. They want to avoid. And it is the thing because the government is also this is also a policy of the government. No, there is different resistance. I don't think so. GST will come. It will not come. According to me, it will not come. It will take a stiff resistance because BJP doesn't have power to pass the bill. Even though it is only the brainchild of this is one of the brainchild of BJP government. I don't think so. It will find light in the near future, at least for another 2 years. So we can rest assured we can close our eyes on GST. We can concentrate on our service tax and VAT. For that, anything is happening around.
Okay, sir. I would like to again by the GST. So, I would like to add points on Sundar sir, whatever he said. Okay, like he said, GST may not come on an immediate future or the near future. Okay, but we may expect it by end of this September or so. So, like the BJP government promised, we cannot expect it by April 2016. We may expect it around September or November. But the two again depends on the powers what BJP have in the constitution. But okay, broadly, let us keep those things aside. I would like to give a brief about GST, whatever I know. Okay, so I'll use the board. So, like Gautam said, GST means goods and service tax. It's basically going to converge all the indirect taxes like service tax, excise duty, local taxes like sales tax, VAT, octroi, etc., entry taxes, etc. There are many taxes which are going to be subsumed into one single tax called goods and service tax. Like he said, there will not be different administrative offices for all these things. There will be one single administrative office. You can get your refunds or you can contact the department in a single window. There will not be different windows. For excess, you have to go to this department. For service tax, you have to go to this department. For this refund, I have to go to that department. All these problems, administrative problems, will get closed. You will get into an application with one particular department. That will be a GST department. Now, there are additional features which are going to get implemented. Like in the erstwhile regime, it is like what you have to go and file manual application. Like you have to go and submit physical forms. Now, Make in India and what other digital India actually. These are few new schemes which are introduced by Modi and what there are. Digital India is a scheme which is what from SQL also is available. So now GST regime is primarily based on GST and network. GST and network is nothing but GSTN means GST and network. All these things will be made online. So in case of what in the current regime, if I violate certain things, then the department will come out and give a notice. We may have heard SCN, show cause notice. So department will give, like in direct tax, show cause notice section 142, 143. Similarly, in indirect tax also we have show cause notices. Each department will give show cause notice when there is a non-compliance in their own respective law. For example, excise department can give a show cause notice for excise violation, service tax for service tax violation,
VAT for VAT violation, like that, but each department can give their own show cause notices. These show cause notices will be served physically, or what they will be sending it through courier. So on serving of show cause notice, again the regular process will follow, what you will submit the reply, etc., etc. But there are various sort of litigations saying that show cause notice is not received, show cause notice not served. See, this is specific case study in the final also. What do you mean by show cause notice served, show cause notice received? Show cause notice received or served means only after the recipient receives the show cause notice you can call it to be show cause notice served. Just because the postman comes and puts the show cause notice on your door and he doesn't receive, that doesn't mean show cause notice is received. So the person should be in a position to understand the show cause notice or to receive the show cause notice. Only then it will be agreed that it is show cause notice served. So these are the problems. Basis these problems, there are various litigations running on, which was actually taking the time of the government to settle down. So it was taking the time of the government rather to focus on important areas than to focus on these areas. So to overcome all these things, now in the GST network, like in any other indirect taxes or direct taxes, you will be allotted to a number, that is GST number, GST registration number. This registration number will be online. So all the show cause notices, whatever will be there, will be served to you online in your registered mail ID. So you cannot deny that any notice is not received. Because once you are going to give an email ID, if a mail is going to be received on your desk, then it means that show cause notice was served. So these are all the next steps what GSTN proposes to have, because these are all the regimes which will reduce huge amounts of litigation in the industry now. So this is with reference to litigation side. So like I said, GST network will be a online portal. So everything, like I said, for serving of notice, similar ratio applies for refunds. So in the current regime, you may have to go and submit physical forms of 4 to 5 copies. So this is what my claims are. So these are the shipping bills which I have did, these are the excise that I have paid. So for these things, my output excise duty is exempt. So I am eligible for these refunds. So please give me a refund. So I have to submit huge amounts of documentation to department saying that what these are my refund claims. You do it. So it will take a lot amount of time. So like I said, you can say in the earlier stage of government, if you give tax to government, it is like what it is very difficult for you to get back. You can always anyway write it off. So now these things will be what overcome. So like, but I can see income tax returns to be built early these times. So to overcome all these things, whatever they have in income tax, like TDS website, TDS site, Form 26 here, will be linked. All your income will be linked and you can easily match. So like that they are trying to bring in on GST network. So for all of you, let me tell you, GST may look very simple, but it is not that simple. Okay, when I say it is going to be a merger or it is going to be a collusion of all the taxes, you should think in one angle. So service tax came in 1994. We still have a lot of litigations running on. We still don't know how to file returns, except for few. Okay, which means a law which is in existence for 18 years is yet to get settled down. So now we are speaking of a new law which is going to take care of all the components: excise duty, service tax, VAT, central tax, octroi, entry taxes, etc. That being said, this is going to be huge tax. So you have various concepts in excise. The definition of manufacture. Only excise duty is leviable only on manufacture. Service tax is leviable only when you perform a service. So these two definitions are completely different. So when you say I am manufacturing goods, only then the excise duty will be coming into picture. Only when I do a activity of service. So service itself is defined. Any activity performed between two reasons for valuable consideration. So these are all various set of parameters which are defined to define you as define a particular activity as service. Only then it will become taxable. So when I say GST, I cannot simply levy tax on every transaction. So I may have to bring in all these concepts into one particular definition. Only then I will be in a position to tax the activity. So the new concept which will overcome all these concepts, like what if a GST comes into picture, the definition for manufacturer will lose its relevance. The definition for service will lose its relevance. So there will be new definition which will come into picture, that is nothing but place of supply. So what in VAT, there in the current regime, in the local areas, in the current regime, it is like what VAT will be levied from the state of origin. For example, if I am producing TN, I am going to supply it to AP, I will levy VAT here. GST runs on a different mechanism. GST runs on a destination-based mechanism. Current regime runs on a origin-based mechanism. Origin-based mechanism, like I explained earlier, if I produce here, if I sell outside, I will put VAT here. Being a seller, I will put VAT here, I will collect from the buyer, I will deposit to government. but GST runs into a different picture. GST is levied on consumption. It is not levied on procurement. So when I'm going to say GST is levied on consumption, that's where Sundar Sir's points come into picture. Because being this state, being a Tamil Nadu state, I am going to levy GST only when I consume. I, being Tamil Nadu, will be a manufacturing sector or manufacturing hub. So I will be losing revenue because GST is a destination-based taxation. So I am going to make all the sales to Andhra Pradesh. Then all the taxes are only getting collected in Andhra Pradesh. Tamil Nadu government will not get any revenue. So there will be a loss of revenue to TN government. That's why all the states are resistant against this change. So for this change, the central government has said, so okay, don't worry, states, we will try to accommodate this. We will try to give you a 2% cash flow again. So this 2% cash flow is nothing like no taxes levied on the consumers. It is like central government reimbursing the state governments. So when coming to the other point of 1% additional tax, 1% additional tax is similar to the current regime of CST. CST is not creditable. Similarly, to compensate the selling states or manufacturing states for a certain period, this 1% additional tax which is not creditable can be levied. So like said earlier, it will be only for a certain period unless it is extended. So these are the basic concepts with reference to tax. This is overview picture. So going into detail, so like I said earlier, so we have different forms. For excise duty, I have different forms to file the excise returns. For service tax, I have different forms to file service tax returns. For VAT, I have different forms to file VAT returns. Now let me give you some clues on the complexity what we are going to face. VAT laws. If you take VAT laws, each state has its own law. Each state has its own number for its own number of products. For example, fuel for petrol in Tamil Nadu may have a different code for taxation. For example, whenever you pay a tax, if you say take a service also, you will pay a tax under particular category. If I am going to say manpower, there is one category called manpower service. Under the manpower service category, I will be paying taxes. There will be business support service. There will be goods transport agency service. So like this, there will be n number of classifications in goods. I can say what water bottle, laptop, watch, shirts, textiles, shoes. So these are all different categories of goods which will be taxed. So all these goods are taxable, which means you can think the number of items: fan, light, calendar, paper, cupboard, wooden furniture, transfer of leisure rate. So you can think of the number of items which can be brought into VAT. So that itself is innumerable. So when you are thinking of a VAT law which is going to be equal throughout the country, why I am stressing on this point? Because each VAT law is different. Each VAT law will have their own codification system in the current regime. So they will now the GST regime, all these VAT laws are going to be clubbed together, which means I have to bring in one system of codifying all the items. So this is not going to be an easy task. So this is going to be a difficult one. Now, if you also understand, there are different laws for service and goods. Now when I am going to say goods and service tax, I am going to combine these two laws. So when goods by itself is difficult and when service by itself is difficult. So earlier we had positive risk regime where only selected number of services will be taxable. That is 119 services which are taxable earlier. Then we moved on in 2012 to negative risk regime, where I would say except for these services, all services are taxable. So now we have that many complications in service tax itself. So now coming to GST, goods have their own complications, service tax have their own complications. I will be merging these two as one law, that is GST. Apart from this, I have excise duty coming into picture. So that being said, you can think of the complexity of the law. It's like but advantages is like you can take the credits throughout. So in the VAT laws, you cannot take credits outside the state. So now that is done away with. Of course, you cannot take credit on 1% additional tax. So free flow of credits is the only advantage what GST proposes to have. But there will be lot of difficulties in the initial phase of implementation. Let me give you certain recent updates. Like in the month of October 2015, there were draft laws coming into picture. So there were 4 reports issued to public, like GST returns, GST report on returns, GST report on payments, GST report on registration, and GST report on, I don't recollect the correct word, it will be like registration, payment, returns, and Fine, let me explain about these things. Okay. Registration again, I said what there will be 15-digit number, so it will be having PAN number into your picture. So there will be 2 code numbers for state. There will be 3 numbers alphanumeric, and there will be 1 number specifically allocated, which will be variable. For example, in the GST regime, it is proposing for 2-3 things. Like 1, I am into a business of manufacturing shoes. I am also into business of manufacturing watches. I am also into business of manufacturing pens. I can either have 1 consolidated GSTN number, or I can have 3 GSTN numbers for 3 different items. Like 1 registration number for pen, 1 registration number for watch, 1 registration number for shoes. Now, there it doesn't end. It is still continuing. So GSTN number is not for the product alone. GSTN number can also be subclassified into my branches, my warehouses, my administrative offices. Which means I can have separate GST registration number for my 1 branch in Tamil Nadu. I can have a separate GST registration for a warehouse in Andhra Pradesh. I can have a separate GST registration number for my administrative office in Kerala. Which means I will have to control 3 different registration numbers. So this I am saying for a company which is having only 3 place of business. Think of companies which have n number of place of business, n number of administrative offices. Of course, this is an option given to you. The option in this, the advantage in this option is that you will be in a position to finalize the numbers for the respective branches. But the difficulty will be you may have to consolidate, you may have to file separate returns for all these registration numbers. For each registration number, you may have to file a separate return. So this will be the advantage in this type of mechanism. The other mechanism comes into picture is like I will have 1 consolidated registration number for all the registration places, but the difficulty will be for you to consolidate the data of all the registration places into 1 particular file and you have to upload. So now this will be with reference to registration. Of course, there are final details reference to registration. I don't think so that will be needed from here. Now moving on to the complexity of returns. So this is the main part. There are around 8 to 9 forms prescribed in the GSTN network. So the broad concept goes out this way. So initially, being a purchaser, I may have to finalize on my purchases and I may have to file my report on 10th of every month. That will be, I think so, it will be filed on GSTR2. So GSTR2 will consolidate your entire purchases by 10th and you may have to upload in GSTN upload network portal. Once you upload this, the seller will upload his portal by 15th of subsequent month. So I may have to update all my purchases by 10th of the month. The seller will either agree to my purchases and he will upload other purchases if I have missed out by 15th of the month. So these are the deadlines, same month. So I will confirm from my end that these are my purchases by 10th. Then he will confirm from his end that these are the sales which I have made. So if I am going to claim some additional purchase which he is not mentioning, then credit will not be allowed here. So this is an inbuilt mechanism developed in the GST network to do away with the excess credit or undue credit which a person is taking. So these are the advantages in the GST network. Which means what I am trying to say is all your purchases and sales will be interlinked. You cannot take credit unless your seller approves it. So now what will be the problem here? So unless your seller approves it, you cannot take the credit. That will be the main problem because you may have to follow with each and every vendor of yours to make sure that he is filing his returns. Earlier it is not the case. So earlier if you file returns for your purchases, for your sales, and if you are in a position to prove with your invoice, you will be entitled for the credit. But that is not the case here. In the current GST network, if the seller doesn't upload his sale, he will not be entitled for credit. You may have to follow up with all your vendors and you have to ensure that they are paying their returns properly on time. Only then you will be eligible for your credit. So this will have a huge implication on working capital. Because VAT liability by itself will take a huge cost. So this is with reference, I am saying the overview picture because if you go in detail with the returns, then I would like to say about interstate transfers, stock transfers, then you may have to go to each registration number wise, category wise, place of business wise details. Also let me tell you something, these reports what I am going to file, I may have to file it with invoice wise details. It is not like what I put one summary here and I file it. In service tax returns, I only put a summary of this is the total number of sale what I made. This is the amount of tax which I am going to pay. I will file the service tax returns. But that is not the case here. You may have to give invoice-wise reference to which party, his TIN number, his GSTN number, his amount. Again, subclassification with reference to CGST, SGST, IGST, additional tax and other features. So, this amount of detail is necessary. To give the overall picture, it is like what you may have to file around 300 to 400 returns for one particular vendor who is having around 3 to 4 business premises in a year. Which comes out to around what 20 to 25 returns in a month.
Suppose it's like you are a manufacturing unit. I'm an intermediary and instrument sells it to the consumers. What will he do? Then if he sells it to Anand who just purchases for around...
He is a consumer?
He is the final consumer.
So he is again an intermediary.
Intermediary. Okay, we just keep these three people into the picture. Now everyone has to like he is purchasing from Sudarshan. So what if he is a small person who cannot approve his purchase? Is there
He did not approve his purchase. The purchase thing, if I am going to purchase, my seller has to upload his sales. Only then I will be eligible for my credit. See, if I don't show my purchases, I am the end person who will be losing my credit. So for example, being the end customer, if somebody is selling it to me, if I don't want the credit, I can very well stay away. So that doesn't mean that I am cheap. I am okay with what not having credits. So it's not like cheap. The only difficulty will be you following up with the seller to ensure that he is uploading all the details on the GST network. See, if you want to take the credit, you may have to follow up with these things. I being an end customer where I am not eligible, for example, if I am going and buying this pen, I will not be really bothered about the input tax credit. So I may not even file returns. I am not necessary. It is not necessary.
The cost will outweigh the benefit. That is the reason you will be choosing him whether to go in for or not go in for your input credit.
So the other problems, which is I list on the problems what will be there in GST network. Like I said earlier, it is in the current regime. It's your own way of mechanism. Like if you are compliant, you are eligible for credits, you are eligible for everything. But in the GST network, it is not the case. So you must be compliant. You should also make sure all your vendors are compliant. All your sellers are purchasers compliant. That is because it follows a combined policy of combined compliance. Because GST network has one simple principle of having credit throughout India, which supply chain should not be broken. So why this concept is here? Why I should ensure my seller is uploading proper details? That's because I am going to give credit to you. The government is giving credit to you. He cannot give undue credit to you. Else government will lose on revenue. So to ensure that no undue credit is taken, you should make sure the supply chain is proper. If anywhere supply chain is broken, that's where the credit ends. So this is the combined mechanism.
Next party can't avail the credit.
Of course. Then he will be starting to pressurize you. Why I can't avail it? I am purchasing from you. Are you not an eligible purchaser? So like I said, so I have given you the overall picture. So what will be the consequences? Like he said. So there is some new concepts which are introduced called blacklisting of dealers. So if I am not compliant with the GST network, if I violate the principles of GST network for a consistent period of 3 months, then I will be blacklisted. If I am going to get blacklisted, my credits will not be available to my vendor, to my seller, to my customer. If my customer is not going to enjoy the credits, he will not be willing to purchase from me itself, which means there is a basic hit in the business operation itself. So I must be compliant. If I am not compliant, there will be huge hit in the business. So this is how they are trying to streamline and bring in the law. So it may look complicated, but if this thing works out, then India will definitely be in a growing phase. But of course, it will be very, very difficult for you to work out on these grounds, because like I said, there will be around 25 to 30 returns to be filed on 1 month for one registration number. Because I'm a manufacturer, I have place of business throughout India in all the states. Then for one registration in all the states itself, I have to file 30 returns. So if I have multiple registrations, I may have to file 60 returns, 90 returns into n. N number of registrations into number of states which you do. That is a call which you should take later. But the advantage will be, see, there are a lot of scope of improvement given to chartered accountants. Like what chartered accountants may certify these things. So there will be a lot of improvements given. For example, a purchase or a sale should be approved by chartered accountant. Like what if the seller is going to upload his returns, then the chartered accountant has to verify. He has to verify that whether he has actually made all the sales. This should be certified by chartered accountant. So there will be huge scope of growth for chartered accountants if they are in indirect tax and if they know GST. But subject to the condition, GST comes into picture. Okay. So see, this will be the level of complication what I am saying. So there will be other reports like what interstate sale. So all these things you have separate registration. There is a new concept of TDS inserted in GST. So there is, that's not actually new. It's like what works contract TDS. It's bringing into picture into GST as a whole. Like normal income tax TDS, you will have works contract TDS coming into picture as GST TDS into picture. I mean with the GST TDS. The same logic or the same system in income tax will be followed in GST network. Say like what, if I am not going to deduct TDS in GST TDS, I will not be entitled for the credit. So these are all the additional points which are taken out from the existing systems to ensure that there is no leakage of revenue. So this will be the overall picture of GST. I can go into detail like what CGST, SGST, IGST. CGST stands for Central GST, SGST stands for State GST, IGST stands for Integrated GST, and additional tax is there, which is 1% not creditable. The credit mechanism follows this way. So for CGST, you can first again utilize it against CGST, then against IGST. Not the other way around. You cannot use against first IGST, then against CGST. You should first use all your credits against CGST, then against IGST. SGST credit, CGST credit cannot be used against SGST. Same thing applies for SGST. SGST first against SGST, then against IGST, not against CGST. Something, okay. When IGST, it will be like first against IGST, then against CGST, then against the SGST. SGST credit is available throughout for all the things, but this is the order which you have to follow. So,
grandfather, father, son. You cannot touch grandfather. Father cannot touch grandfather. Son cannot touch father. But you don't can touch son.
So okay, this is the overall credit mechanism which is going to be followed. So, like he said, there will be other.
The initial thing CGST has to be used for CGST and then for IGST. What if I don't have an output CGST?
Then you use it against IGST. So, see, if you have a liability, you may have to use against it. If you don't have a liability, you can use against IGST. So it's like in the current regime we had.
But the problem here is those who are going to face exam, we used to read separate subjects. When you people are going to write, they combine all the 4 subjects into one and they are going to ask questions.
It's like in the current regime of service tax, education cess and excise duty education, so now it is actually gone away. So earlier we said that the education cess paid on service tax duty cannot be utilized against the duty. It can be only utilized against the education cess. So the same concept follows, but here it will be on the GST side. So the invoice will carry only, invoice itself will carry one component of GST and it will be subdivided into CGST, SGST. There will be only one tax component and the tax component will be subdivided into CGST and SGST. Doesn't mean I am saying there are not two components in the invoice. There will be only GST which will be subdivided into CGST and SGST. It is not like I will have separate CGST column and SGST column. GST column, say 100, it will be divided into SGST, CGST 50-50. You are trying to understand the picture. It's like what? It will be one tax. So okay, that is it actually. This is the overall picture. Okay, let's speak on what reports, returns, payments, etc. Payments again, there is one jargon which is kept. Earlier it is like what, if I make the payment through net banking, it is sufficient for me and it is an evident proof that I have made the payment. Now in GST regime, it is like what? Unless the payment reaches the government, even though you make it through net banking, if the bank is not sending in the money, even then you will be responsible. So to that extent they are ensured that all these are the problems. So there will be additional problems like what? Credit mechanism. So like I said, I can have different registration number for pen, shoe and watch. When I say different registration number, I cannot take credit of watch against pen, pen against shoe, shoe against watch. So what? These are different operations by itself. Like in the current regime, input tax credit can be availed only if it is directly related to manufacturer. The same concept will be followed in GST. So when it compares to other duties levied, customs duty is not subsumed in the GST. BCD is largely levied. CBD component is subsumed. So BCD you may have to pay. Whatever you import, there will be a levy duty levy of IGST. There will be duty levy of IGST. So okay, this will be the broad picture. I think so. This shall, unless you want more. Thank you.
request the new article.
Hello, I'm Vigalya. I'm from KS Academy. I did both my CPT and intermediate from KS Academy. I did my schooling in Vidyashram, 12th. Looking forward to work with you all of you. Sorry.
Okay, we welcome you in our school and we wish you all success.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll wind up with the tax audit.
So, one that you have
There will be a different presentation coming up.
நீ பேசுறா விஜய் குமார் ஏதோ பிரசன் பண்றான் பேசுறான். ஆமா கூட கூட்டானா போய் இங்க வா
Okay.
OPEX company 8 years I can know OPEX company. Our 9th year complete அப்போ எனக்கு நல்ல குரு வச்சிருக்காரு சுரேஷ் சார் மாதிரி எனக்கு ரொம்ப பெருமையா இருக்கு. அதே மாதிரி வெங்கட்டாருக்கு ரொம்ப தேங்க்ஸ் சொல்லணும். அவர் தான் ஜாப் கூப்பிட்டாரே நான் ஓடி வந்தேன். இப்போ எனக்கு நல்ல குரு வச்சிருக்காரு. எப்படி ப்ரௌட். அதே மாதிரி 2 மேனேஜர் கிடைச்சிருக்காங்க. 2 மேனேஜரும் ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட் இருக்காங்க. அமர்தா குமார் மாதிரி ரமேஷ் சார் மாதிரி அவரோட ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட் எனக்கு 2 பேருமே இருக்கு.
அமுதகுமார் ரமேஷ் மேனேஜர்
அமர்தா குமார் ரமேஷ் எனக்கு ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட் ஆகுது. அதே மாதிரி ராகவனை பற்றி சொல்லணும்னா இன்னும் பெரிய இன்டெலிஜென்ட் பர்சன் ஆஃபீஸ்ல அவர் இன்டெலிஜென்டா இருப்பாரு. எனக்கு ஃபுல் சப்போர்ட் எனக்கு ரொம்ப ராகவனும் டோனிக் தான்.
மனோஜ் நம்ம
Naveen sir. Prasant sir. பிரசாந்த் மாத்திரீங்க.
ராகவன் பத்தி ராகவன் பத்தி சொல்ல போன இதுல பாஸ் பண்ணுவோம் நம்பிக்கை எல்லாம்
பாஸ் பண்ணா நம்பிக்கை இல்லாம இருந்தியாடா.
அப்படி பேக் வந்து இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் பின்னாடி
இல்ல இல்ல பரவாயில்ல.
எமோட் ஆயிட்டாடா.
நான் பாஸ் பண்ணுவோம்னு என்கிட்ட வந்து சொன்னான். சார் சார் நான் பாஸ் பண்றேன் சார். சார் சார் நான் பாஸ் பண்றேன் சார். அவரை சந்தோஷமா
நான் ரெக்கார்ட் சொல்லல.
அதே மாதிரி டோமிக் 2 பேரும் எனக்கு ஃபர்ஸ்ட்
ஏன்டா பாலா என்ன எங்க போனா, பிரசாத் எங்க போனா,
விக்னேஷ் நான் விட்டாரு சார். விக்னேஷ் நான் விட்டாரு, அஜித் நான் விட்டாரு.
விக்னேஷ்
அதே மாதிரி என்னோட நான் ஒரு பத்தி சொன்னாங்க அவரோட இது முதல்ல இவருக்கு பர்ஃபெக்ட் வரும்.
என்ன பண்ண
எல்லாரும் மாதிரி பேசுவார். அப்புறம் அவ்வளோ பேர் எல்லாரும் மாதிரியே பேசுவாரு. ஆனா சாமியின் ஒரு தரக்க அவர் பர்ஃபெக்ட்.
அஞ்சாவது குரு
அவ்வளோ சைலண்ட், யாரு கூட பேச மாட்டாரு. அவ்வளோ அமைதியே இருப்பாரு. ஆறாவது ஒருத்தர் இருக்காரு, பாண்டிச்சேரி சரி அவங்க என் பிறந்த நாள் பொருள்டா. என் பர்த்டே 6வது என் பர்த்டே வந்து அது முதல் நாளா விஷ் பண்ணி என்னை என்கரேஜ் பண்ணார். அவரும்
சொல்லவே மாட்டேன் சார். பாவம் கணேஷ் சார் ஊட்டியாடா. கணேஷ்
அது 3 சொன்னார்ல சார், நீங்க மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டீங்க. உங்க 4 என்ன சொன்னாரு?
என் நம்பர் கணேஷ் சார். நம்பர் சொல்லு கரெக்டா. அப்பையா ஒண்ணு, கணேஷியா ஒண்ணு, இவன் சுரேஷியா 2. சுரேஷியா 2ஆம் நம்பர் கொடுத்த, கணேஷ் ஏன் 1ஆம் நம்பர் கொடுத்த?
3
அதான் ஏன்னு கேக்குறேன். அவனுக்கே 1 இவனுக்கே 2 கேக்குறேன்.
அதை விடுங்க, சுந்தர் சரியே 4.
அவரு அதே மாதிரி
அவனுக்கு புரியலடா.
அவ்வளோ இன்கம் டாக்ஸ்ல அவ்வளோ நல்லா பண்ணுவேன். யாருக்கும் நான் விட மாட்டேன். அவ்வளோ அப்ரிஷியேட்
மாறிட்டாங்க.
400 பண்ணணும் 500 பண்ணணும் அவ்வளோ சந்தோஷமா இருந்தேன். இப்போ எப்படி இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் இ-பேங்க்
வரப்போறான்.
திரும்பி சொல்றேன், மறுபடியும் டெய்லி ஒரு 1 hour அதை கண்டினியூ மாட்டிக்காம டெய்லி ஒரு 1 hour படிக்க யூஸ் பண்ணா போதும்.
அந்த பையன் 1 hour படிக்க மாட்டேன்.
டைம் கிடைக்க மாட்டேங்குது.
யார் யாரு கவுன்சிலர்? வெங்கடா
ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்பட்டேன். அப்போ அவர்தான் கூட்டாங்க. நீங்க வந்தோம்னா தெரிஞ்சுது அவ்வளவு சப்போர்ட்டா இருக்காங்க. இன்னொரு டாபிக் சொன்னா ரொம்ப encourage பண்ணி staff okay permission வாங்கி அவரை ஹெல்ப் பண்ணாரு. ஆனா கட்சியில வர போக முடியாம ஆயிடுச்சு. அவர் ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருந்தது.
சரி, நான் ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்கிறேன். உனக்கு வந்து இந்த பார்ட்னர்ஸ்ல வெங்கட் சாரை பார்த்த மட்டும் ஏன் பயம்? வெங்கட் சாரை பார்த்த மட்டும் ஏன் பயம்? என்னெல்லாம் பார்த்து உதவல சொல்லு, ஆன்சர் சொல்லு. பேச மாட்டியா?
அதான் சரி, ஏன் கேட்குறேன்?
அதான் ஏன் கேட்கிறேன்?
அதே மாதிரி அரவிந்த் அப்தோ தண்ணி கரெக்டா போட்டு கொடுத்து அவரை ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுவாங்க.
சார் கௌதம் சார்
சார் மோடி சொல்லிட்டீங்க.
வைஸ் பிரசிடென்ட்
யாரு?
சார் சரத்குமார் நீயா
ஏய், என்னோட கண்ணனை விட்டியடா, நீ குத்தம் கொடுத்தா கண்ணை.
அந்த போட்டோ
ஒரு டோன்
நீ வந்து லைஃப்ல ரெடி பண்ண உதவ முடியும். ஒன்னு கண்ணை, இன்னொரு சேவ் பண்ணி மட்டும் வரக்கூடாது பாருங்க. பல பல வந்து செத்தான் அவன். ஆமா, நீ குத்த விட்டு அவன் வருவா. இவன் குத்தம் கொடுத்தீங்க, அவன் ஓட்ட
தூண்டி விடுறது நீங்க சொல்றது
திருப்பி எல்லாருக்கும் அட்வைஸ் பண்ணேன். டெய்லி ஒரு 1 hour டைம் எடுத்து ட்ரீட் கொடுக்கணும்.
308.
எல்லாரும் நல்லா ட்ரீட் கொடுத்து கடவுள் அனுகிரகத்தால நிறைய நல்ல ரிசல்ட் வர நல்லா இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு நான் ப்ரே பண்றேன்.
உனக்கு புள்ள வச்சே கடத்துக்கலாம்
என்னன்னு தெரியாது.
யார் வேணா கூப்பிட அவளை கூப்பிடாத. பைபிள்ல வச்சிருக்காங்க.
எல்லாரும் ஆபீஸ் போனா நான் பார்த்துட்டாங்க.
சாந்தியக்கா ஊட்டியா
எல்லா ஃபங்க்ஷனுக்கும் சதீஷ் ஃபோன் பண்ணேன். பாண்டிச்சேரி சதீஷ் ஃபோன் பண்ணி விஷ் பண்ணேன். உண்மையா அந்த அளவுக்கு எல்லா பேரும் உங்களை பார்த்து வச்சிருக்கேன். எனக்கு ஒரு ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி கொடுத்தேன். கௌதம் ரொம்ப தேங்க்ஸ்.
இப்ப வெங்கடராம கூட கூட ராமச்சந்திரன் நான் பாட்டுல நீ சரிவா இன்னைக்கு சனிக்கிழமை நீங்க பூஜை நடத்துவா அப்ப பாருங்க டைம் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணா
जय हे भारत गुजरात महाराजा द्राविड उच्चर गंगा हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चर जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे त्यागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे त्यागे तव जय दाता गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
மீட்டிங்